still remember the night Callie stood in my kitchen doorway, wearing socks that didn't match and holding a mug she hadn't filled yet, like she'd walked downstairs and forgotten why. She looked at me for a second, then said it quietly, almost to herself. I don't think I'm someone a man falls for anymore. She wasn't looking for an argument. She wasn't fishing. Callie Hart had never been the kind of woman who fished for compliments. She was the kind of woman who showed up to your going-away party with a homemade cake and a list of every mistake you were probably about to make. So when she said it, I knew she meant it. And I knew it had been building for a while. But it started before that night. It started about 3 weeks earlier, when my brother Owen called me on a Tuesday afternoon while I was in the middle of repointing the mortar on an old brick fireplace for a client in Bozeman. "Don't say anything dumb," Owen said. I put the trowel down and leaned back on my heels. "Hello to you too." "I'm not joking, Marcus." Owen only used my full name when he was about to make something my problem. I pulled off one work glove. "What happened?" "Callie's moving back. She got here this morning." That stopped me. I'd known Callie Hart since we were teenagers. She was Owen's girlfriend's college roommate first, then somehow became a permanent fixture in our group. The kind of person who just absorbed into your life before you had a chance to decide. She had this way of remembering things. Your mom's birthday, the name of your dog who died when you were 12, the exact coffee order you'd mentioned once at a diner in 2019. She argued with conviction and lost gracefully and made everyone feel like the most interesting person in the room. Then she moved to Denver, got a job she was really good at, and got engaged to a guy named Brandon who wore blazers on weekends and said things like, at the end of the day, in regular conversation. She seemed happy. She seemed settled. I'd seen her maybe 4 times in 3 years, and each time she looked polished and purposeful, like she was right where she planned to be. Owen got quiet on the phone. She had a health scare, he said. Something they caught early, but she needed surgery, and it was a lot. And Brandon didn't handle it well. I looked at the fireplace in front of me. The old mortar had crumpled in one corner, soft as chalk. "Gone how?" "Gone as in he gave her back the ring while she was still in recovery. Said he needed time. We all know what that means." I didn't say anything. Owen filled the silence. She doesn't want a lot of questions. She doesn't want people treating her like she's fragile. Her mom already made it weird at the airport, so we're all pretending that didn't happen. "Owen." "What?" "I'm not going to ambush her in the driveway." "I know. I just want you to know, because your face has never once in your life kept a secret." That was fair. I saw Callie 2 days later outside her mom's house in Missoula, standing in the driveway next to a pile of luggage and looking at it like she was running calculations. Her hair was different. Shorter, practical. She wore an oversized flannel and jeans and had one hand resting against her ribs, not pressing, just resting, like a habit she didn't know she developed. When she heard my truck, she turned. The smile she gave me was Callie's smile, but careful. Measured, like she'd decided in advance how much of it to use. "Marcus Reeve," she called. "Still driving that truck, I see." I got out and looked at the luggage. "You need help, or are you guarding it?" I was waiting to see if it would carry itself. Disappointing results so far. There she was. Just for a second, quick and sharp, the old Callie. Then a neighbor walked by, and she turned her shoulder slightly, and the joke went quiet. I grabbed 2 bags and didn't say anything about it. We worked through the luggage in about 20 minutes. She directed from the porch while I carried, and she had opinions about everything. Which bag went where, the correct angle for a duffel on a closet shelf, why I was holding the garment bag wrong. "You said against the wall," I told her. I meant that wall. There's only 2 walls in this closet. And yet somehow you chose incorrectly. Incredible. I looked over my shoulder. "You know most people say thank you. Most people don't store winter coats in July." I laughed before I could stop myself. She looked quietly pleased, not in a big way. Just a little flash of satisfaction, like she'd found a dial that still worked. Later, I helped move a box of books upstairs. She reached for one end, automatically, and I said, "I got it." Maybe half a second too fast. She stopped. So did I. The air between us went still. I can carry a box, she said. I know. Then why the face? I set the box down carefully. Owen told me if you hurt yourself, he gets to yell at me, not you, me. She looked at me for a second, deciding something. Coward. Deeply. She let me take the full weight of it after that. The last thing she asked was whether I could get a window open in her old bedroom. It had been painted over twice and had no intention of cooperating. I worked a putty knife along the frame while she sat on the edge of the bed and watched. You make the same face working on everything, she said. What face? Like it owes you money. I didn't answer. She looked at the window for a moment. It's good to be somewhere. Things don't move too fast, she said. Then, lighter than it meant to be, or maybe I just slowed down. I kept my eyes on the window. The latch gave. I pushed it open and didn't respond to the thing she'd said under the thing she'd said. Over the next few weeks, I found reasons to come around. I fixed the gutter, helped haul furniture from a storage unit, replaced a light fixture in the kitchen that had been flickering since 2021. Owen and I were doing a bathroom renovation 2 streets over, so I had a reasonable excuse most days. Then Callie started coming by the job site. First time, she showed up with a paper bag of breakfast sandwiches from the place on Higgins and set them on my tailgate without ceremony. I walked past and smelled the coffee, she said. You walked 6 blocks out of your way. I have long legs. I didn't argue. She sat on the tailgate while I ate and looked at the house like she was thinking about what it had been before and what it was becoming. She came back a few more times, not every day, but enough that I started noticing when she didn't. She still joked. She still called me Reeve when she wanted to sound unimpressed. She still made sharp comments about my taste in radio stations. But there were gaps, long sleeves even when it was warm, a quick subject change when someone mentioned Denver, the way she went a little still when someone was kind to her in that specific, careful tone people use around someone who's been through something. The tone that means, I know, and I'm not going to say it directly, but I want you to feel how much I know. I knew that tone made her uncomfortable, so I didn't use it. I did what I knew how to do. I fixed things. A hinge on her mom's back gate, a cabinet door in the laundry room, a section of porch railing that had softened from last winter's ice. Small things. Useful things. Things with screws and levels and right answers. People were harder. One evening, I was driving back from a supply run in town and I passed the Hard House. Callie was sitting on the front steps alone. She had a blanket around her shoulders and a glass of wine in her hands, but she wasn't drinking it. She was just looking at the street like it had said something she was still processing. I slowed without planning to. She saw me. She didn't smile. I've learned there's a difference between someone being alone and someone being stranded in their own head. One deserves space, the other deserves company, even if they don't ask for it. I parked and got out. You lost? She called. Thought about getting a taco. Decided against it. Very compelling life you've built. I walked up and sat on the steps beside her, 1 step down so there was room to breathe. She looked at my empty hands. Nothing? You show up empty-handed? This was unplanned. That's a personal failing. I went back to my truck, looked through the center console and found a half bottle of Tempranillo I'd bought for Owen's birthday and then forgotten. I grabbed 2 gas station cups from the back seat and brought them up. She looked at the cups. Stunning. I provide a full-service experience. The service industry has declined significantly. I poured. She held her cup with both hands, blanket pulled around her shoulders. The evening was that particular Montana kind, still bright at 7 but cooling fast, the mountains going pink at the edges, grasshoppers starting up in the yard. For a while, neither of us said anything. Callie had always known how to do that. She could out-talk a room full of people, but she also knew when to sit in the quiet. Finally, she said, "Can I ask you something?" "Yeah." "You have to promise not to answer like someone handling me." I looked at her. "That's a narrow promise." "You can do it. You're naturally blunt." "There." She turned the cup in her hands. Her nails were short, no polish. She looked at the front yard like she was choosing words. When you see me now, she said, what you actually see. I didn't answer right away. The easy things were right there. You look like you look good, you look like Callie. And all of them would have been technically true and completely wrong. She wasn't asking about her hair. She was asking whether what had happened to her had moved to the front of her, like a sign she couldn't take down. I see, Callie, I said. She made a small sound. That's textbook kind person answer. I'm not done. She went still. I see the woman who drove 6 blocks out of her way to bring breakfast sandwiches and then pretended she just happened to walk by. A small exhale. I see someone who gives orders like a job site foreman but brings coffee for everyone first. The coffee was for me. You brought 4. She was quiet. I see someone who's tired, I said, and hurt, and different from the version of you who showed up to Owen's 30th birthday and talked my uncle out of a bad stock tip for 45 minutes. He was going to lose $8,000. I know. I looked at the mountains, then back at her. But I don't see damage first. That's not what I see when I look at you. Something happened in her face. It wasn't dramatic. She didn't look away or well up or do anything you could point to. She just looked down very fast, and I knew I'd touched the thing she'd been protecting. After a while, she said, Brandon did. I had only heard his name twice since she got back, both times by accident, both times she'd redirected so smoothly most people wouldn't have noticed. I kept still. In the beginning, he was everything, she said. He came to every appointment. He knew the right things to say. He told my mom I was strong. He held my hand in the waiting room and squeezed it exactly the right number of times. Her voice was steady. Her hand was not. Then recovery got real. Not the kind they show you in movies, the actual kind. I was exhausted and sore, and I couldn't sleep, and I couldn't work, and I kept crying at nothing. Couldn't tell if I was sad or scared or just chemically wrecked. I pushed him away and then hated when he gave me space and nothing I communicated came out right. I said nothing. He started being somewhere else, she continued. Working late, long runs, phone calls in the garage. He stopped reaching for me first. When he did touch me, it was this particular careful thing. Like a duty. Like he was reminding himself he was supposed to. My jaw tightened. She noticed. Don't make me manage your reaction right now, she said quietly. She was right. I looked at the steps. The worst part wasn't even him leaving, she said. It should have been. But there was something worse. She turned the cup slowly. One night I woke up and he was on the back porch. He thought I was asleep. He was on the phone with his sister. She stopped. I waited. He said he loved me. He said it wasn't my fault. He said he knew I'd been through something hard. She pressed her lips together, and then he said he didn't know how to see me the same way anymore. The porch went quiet. I heard a car pass on the next street, a dog somewhere. The soft sound of Callie's cup tapping her knee because her hand had started shaking. There are things you want to say in a moment like that, all the clean, righteous things. Things that sound useful because anger is easier than helplessness. But Callie didn't need my outrage. She'd already lived inside the damage. She didn't need me adding noise to it. So I said, that's on him. She made a short sound, not quite a laugh. I know. Callie, I mean it. She looked at me. Her eyes were wet, but her expression was more like anger than grief. Knowing that doesn't undo what it does to you. Knowing he was wrong doesn't pull it out of your chest. He was the person who was supposed to still see me, and he looked at me one day like I was a problem he didn't know how to solve. I had no clean answer for that. I could tell her Brandon was weak. I could tell her he didn't deserve a minute more of her time. I could say all of it, and none of it would reach the place that sentence lived inside her. I set my cup down. I'm not Brandon, I said. She looked at the yard. I know, she said quietly. That's why this is complicated. The air shifted. She didn't say anything else, but I'd seen it in her face before she looked away. The wanting and the fear of it. The part of her that had learned not to trust comfort because comfort had a history of walking out. I stood up. She tensed. Where are you going? Home. Something closed in her face. I added, you should eat something. You can come or not. She looked at me for a moment. What do you have? Chicken, rice, whatever's in the fridge. That's not a real answer. Come find out. She stared at the yard for another second. Then she stood, folded the blanket over the porch rail and carried her wineglass inside to leave it. 15 minutes later, she was sitting at my kitchen counter with her elbows on the butcher block, watching me make chicken and rice like it was a documentary she had mixed feelings about. Your counters are too low, she said. They're standard height. Standard for who? Someone shorter than you? That's how counters work, Callie. I'm just saying, you built a kitchen addition for the Delgados last spring and their counters are the right height. I built what they asked for. She watched me for a moment. Do you ever just say nothing when you could say something? Sometimes. When? Right now, for example? She almost smiled. Not quite, but almost. I made the rice, seasoned the chicken, and tried not to watch her too closely. The kitchen was warm and low lit, the radio going soft in the corner, and she sat barefoot on the bar stool with her hands wrapped around a glass of water, like she was somewhere she could be still for a minute. I noticed she had stopped tensing every time I moved, small thing. It mattered. I put the plate in front of her. She took a bite, chewed, looked at the ceiling. Okay, she said. High praise. Don't let it go anywhere. She ate slowly. We talked a little. Her mom's new habit of rearranging the living room every 3 weeks. Owen's terrible taste in fantasy football picks. A client of mine who wanted exposed beams but not too rustic, whatever that meant. Then her shoulders changed. Not dramatically, just a quiet shift. Like something had come back into the room with her. Her fork slowed. She looked at the window over the sink, caught her reflection in the dark glass, and looked at her plate. I turned slightly, gave her room. She didn't take it. Instead, she set her fork down very carefully and said, "Can I show you something?" The kitchen went still. Actually still. The radio was still playing, the refrigerator was still humming, but it felt like the room had taken a breath and held it. I turned around. You don't have to, I said. I know. She said it quickly, the way you say something you've already argued yourself through before the other person showed up. She sat at the counter with her dinner half finished, her feet hooked around the barstool rung. My flannel was bunched at her wrists. She pulled the sleeves down further, then said, "That's why I'm asking you." I stayed where I was. Callie, don't say my name to give me an out. I am giving you an out. She looked up at me, and the old sharp version of her looked back, proud and tired and almost daring. I know where the door is, Reeve. I nodded. Okay. She slid off the stool. And then I understood what kind of scared this was. Not embarrassed, not nervous. Scared the way you are when you've shown something once before and the person you showed it to changed. Callie stood in my kitchen under the light over the stove, steady and pale, one hand holding the hem of my flannel. She looked at my face and held there. Brandon saw me after surgery once, she said, not right away. A few weeks in, when things were different. She swallowed. He said it was fine. He said all the things that are supposed to be said, and then he started getting dressed in the bathroom. Something moved through my chest, hot and controlled. I kept it there. She took one breath, then another. Then she lifted the hem of the flannel just enough to show me the scar, low on her right side, curved, still faintly pink. The kind of scar that says here is where they went in, here is what they fixed, here is what you carry forward. I'm not going to make this moment into something it wasn't. I wasn't calm in any practiced way. I was a man standing in his own kitchen being trusted with something Callie had let very few people see. So I looked, not clinically, not with any kind of studied neutrality. I looked the way you look at someone when you're trying to tell them that what they're showing you does not change the sum of who they are, and then I looked at her face. Her eyes were on mine, waiting for the door to close. I watched her swallow. No one's going to want this, she said. I heard what she meant under what she said. I did not rush. That was the only thing I was sure of. That rushing would make it about me, about my discomfort with her pain, about wanting to cover it over fast with words. Quick, comfort can look a lot like avoidance if you're paying attention. I took one step toward her. She didn't move back. I took another and stopped close enough that she could see my face clearly. I do, I said. She looked at me like the sentence hadn't landed in English. I said it again, quieter. I do. Her mouth pressed together. Marcus, don't say that because you feel bad for me. I'm not. Don't say it because he was wrong and you want to be the one who's right. That's not what this is. She let the flannel drop, but kept her hands flat against her stomach. I could see the effort in her face, the part of her that wanted to believe me, and the part of her that had learned what believing someone could cost. I want you, I said, the you who shows up with breakfast and pretends it was an accident, the you who spent 45 minutes saving my uncle from himself. The version sitting in my kitchen right now who just showed me something she was terrified to show and is still standing here. A tear went down her cheek. She wiped it away fast, like it had broken a rule. You haven't seen everything, she said. I don't need the full inventory to know who I'm talking to. Her face folded for half a second, then she pulled it back. I kept my voice even. What happened to you was serious. I'm not going to pretend it wasn't. But your scar is not a warning label. It doesn't make you less. It doesn't change what I see when I look at you. She made a sound that wasn't quite words and covered her mouth. I didn't reach for her. I held out my hand between us, palm up, like a question. She stared at it. Then she took it. Her fingers were cold. She gripped me like she was a little angry about needing to. I pulled her slowly closer, slow enough that she could stop me at any point, and she didn't stop me. She stepped in first, actually, pressed her forehead against my chest, and then the crying came. Not big, not a scene. Callie cried the way she did everything, with a certain amount of controlled stubbornness, like she was furious at her own tears for existing. I held her firmly, not like she was glass. Like she was someone who had been through something real and was still standing and deserved to be held like that mattered. She cried for a while. I didn't track the time. I stood in my kitchen with one hand on her back and one at the back of her head, and I felt her breathe and shake and slowly find her way back. When she pulled away, her face was red and her expression was annoyed. I hate that, she said. I know. I'm not usually like that. You were exactly like you needed to be. She wiped her face with the back of her hand. I don't want to go back to my mom's tonight. Then don't. She looked at me. Guest room's clean, I said. There might be some tile samples on the nightstand from a job I'm quoting, but otherwise it's a functional human room. Tile samples. It's not supposed to be romantic. It's just supposed to be a place where nobody needs you to be okay. She looked at me for a long moment. Then she said, I'm not saying this means anything. You don't know what you're not saying it means. Marcus. The offer stands, no implications required. She looked at the counter, then at the window, then back at me. Fine. I found her a toothbrush that had never been used, a clean towel from the hall, and a bottle of water from the fridge. She slept in the guest room with the door halfway open. I slept on the couch under a blanket my grandmother had made, staring at the ceiling long after the house went dark. Because once you've said I do to someone in the middle of their worst fear, you don't get to pretend it was just something to say. I woke up to the smell of coffee. For a second, I didn't know what was happening. My neck was stiff, my feet were hanging off the end of the couch, and there was light coming through the blinds at the wrong angle. Then I heard a cabinet close in the kitchen. I sat up too fast and knocked a book off the coffee table. Callie was standing at the counter, already dressed, her hair damp, both hands around a mug. She had found the coffee and made enough for two without being asked. She looked at me over the rim. You don't have a toaster oven. I have a regular oven. That's not the same thing. I rubbed the back of my neck. Good morning. I wasn't sure you were conscious. Barely. I stood, stretched, looked at the kitchen. She'd found the mugs on her own, which meant she'd opened at least 3 wrong cabinets, which was something I filed away. You could have woken me up. You were making a face. What face? The money one. I walked over and took the second mug off the counter. She watched me drink, evaluating something. Do you remember everything you said last night? She asked. Yes. All of it. All of it. She looked at her mug, turned it once. Did you mean it? I put my coffee down. Yes. Did you? She stopped, started again. That it wasn't about feeling sorry for me? It wasn't. She kept looking at the mug. That the scar doesn't. She stopped again, pressed her lips together. That it doesn't change things for you. It doesn't. She looked up. Her eyes were careful and direct and tired in that specific way of someone who has been hoping for something for a long time and isn't sure they're allowed to. I moved around to her side of the counter, but I stopped a foot away. Close enough to be honest about it. You are not less, I said. Not to me. Not in any version of this. She inhaled slowly. That sounds like something easy to say before things get real. I know. If I let myself believe you, her voice caught. She held it steady. If I actually let myself do that, and then one day I see you looking at me differently. She didn't finish. She didn't need to. I can't promise I'll be perfect, I said. I can promise I won't pretend. I can promise I won't go quiet on you. I can promise I'm not standing here trying to love the version of you from before. I'm standing here talking to the version of you right now. A long silence. Then she gave a small nod. Just once. Slow, she said. Slow is what I do. I mean it. I need slow. Callie, I restore things for a living. I know how to take my time. Something softened in her face. Just slightly. Just enough. We went slow. She kept coming by the job site with coffee, except now sometimes she stayed for lunch, sitting on an overturned bucket and narrating my work like a one-woman inspection crew. That corner needs more compound. The tile's off by 1/2 inch. Is that load-bearing? It looks load-bearing. Some evenings, I walked her back to her mom's. We talked about her slowly figuring out what came next. A remote job she was considering. A ceramics class she kept almost signing up for. Whether Missoula was a place she could actually stay, or just a place she was resting. We talked about her mom's habit of leaving magazines in every room of the house. We talked about Owen's continued baffling fantasy football decisions. Little by little, she stopped catching her reflection in windows and immediately looking away. About a month in, I took her to dinner. Just us. A restaurant on the edge of downtown where the lighting was low and the tables were spaced far enough apart that the room felt like it had some patience in it. I showed up at her mom's door with flowers because it felt right, not because anyone told me to. She opened the door in dark jeans and a blouse I hadn't seen before and looked at the flowers with a complicated expression. You planned this one, she said. Little bit. The flowers are nice. So are you. She looked down for a second. Then she took the flowers. At dinner, nobody there knew her history. Nobody looked at her with that particular careful softness that had been following her around Missoula for weeks. They just saw a woman at a table having dinner. She ordered the salmon, corrected my pronunciation of something on the wine list, and told me a story about a work disaster from 4 years ago that was so specific and chaotic I genuinely could not believe it was true. That's real? I said. I have the email chain. I want to see it. Absolutely not. It's humiliating. Then why did you tell me? She thought about it. Because it's funnier now. We walked by the Clark Fork after. The river was low and wide, the evening light still holding on, someone's dog running along the path ahead of us. I kept my hands in my jacket pockets. Halfway across the footbridge, she reached over and took my hand. She laced her fingers through mine. Careful at first, then settled. I thought tonight was going to feel like performing, she said. Did it? She shook her head. It just felt like dinner. A pause. Which I realize is not a glamorous thing to say. It's a good thing to say. She looked at the river. I stopped walking. She stopped too. I didn't move in right away. I waited until she looked up, and then I kissed her. Simple, unhurried. Not a question, not a test, just two people standing on a bridge in Montana, choosing this. When we pulled back, she touched her fingers to her mouth. New memory, I said. She smiled for real. New memory. We kept making them. The first time she wore a dress she liked and didn't ask me twice if it looked okay. The first morning she stayed for coffee and we talked for 2 hours about nothing in particular, and she left her jacket on my chair without noticing. The first Sunday she called me instead of waiting for me to call because she'd seen something on a drive that she wanted to tell me about and she just picked up the phone. Then one afternoon her phone buzzed on my kitchen counter while we were figuring out what to do with the rest of a Saturday. She looked at the screen and went very still. Brandon. She stood there for a moment. I watched her without watching her. The phone buzzed again. She picked it up, looked at it for another second, and pressed decline. Set it face down on the counter. Breathed out. I don't want to spend today on that, she said. So we didn't. We drove out to a trailhead sheep liked as a kid, walked a few miles through timber pines and out to a ridge where you could see 3 mountain ranges if the sky cooperated. It cooperated. She stood at the edge of the overlook with her hands in her jacket pockets and her face turned toward the wind, and she looked like herself. Not the version she'd been performing for months. Just Callie. She never became who she was before Denver. That was never the goal. She was changed, and some days were easier than others, and there were still mornings when something came back in her that took time to move through. But she laughed freely. She wanted things without apologizing for wanting them. She let herself be known. Slowly, in pieces, in the particular way she'd always done everything, with a kind of stubborn grace that made it feel like an accomplishment every time. I loved her for all of it. Not the idea of her, not the before version I'd half known for a decade. This one, the one who brought 4 coffees and claimed they were just for her. The one who sat on an overturned bucket and called my tile work off by ½ an inch and was right. The one who stood in my kitchen and showed me the thing she was most afraid to show and stayed. People say love starts with a first date or a kiss or some door opening at the right time. Maybe that's true for some stories. Ours started on a porch in Missoula over gas station cups of Tempranillo when Callie said the thing she actually believed, and I didn't look away. I think about the night Callie stood in my kitchen and said no one's going to want this, and I think about how close I came to saying something soft and useless just to fill the silence. How easy it would have been to say, that's not true, and move on, like a reflex, like something you say when you don't know what else to do. I didn't. And I'm not sure I understood in that moment why holding back was the right thing. I just knew that she deserved more than comfort that was really just about making me feel less helpless. What Brandon did wasn't some rare kind of cruelty. It was actually one of the more common ones. He failed her not out of hatred, but out of weakness. He didn't have the character to stay when staying got hard. That's the thing nobody says out loud. Some people are only capable of love when it's easy, when it requires nothing. The moment it costs something real, time, discomfort, the willingness to sit with someone else's pain without flinching, they go quiet. They start finding reasons to be somewhere else. And the person left behind doesn't just grieve the relationship. They start to believe the story his absence told about them. Callie was smart enough to know in her head that Brandon's leaving was about his limits. But knowing something and being free of it are 2 entirely different things. That gap between understanding a truth and actually feeling it is where so much damage lives. She carried his voice in her chest for months. That's what I saw when I looked at her. Not damage, not a before and after. A person doing the hard, quiet work of trying to reclaim something that had been taken from her without permission. I didn't save her from that. I want to be clear about that. Callie did the real work herself. What I could do, what I chose to do, was refuse to add to the noise, stay consistent, show up without making it a performance, not treat her like something fragile to be handled, but like someone worth being honest with. There's a difference between patience as a strategy and patience as a strategy and something you actually have, and I think she could tell the difference. What I learned from all of it is something I keep coming back to. The way you treat someone when they're at their least put together, when they're tired and scared and not performing anything for anyone, That's the truest thing about you. Not the flowers. Not the right words in front of other people. What you do at 11 o'clock on a Tuesday when somebody is trying not to fall apart. That's the character test. Brandon failed it. Not because he was a monster. Because he hadn't built the kind of inner strength that holds when circumstances stop cooperating. Callie had that strength. Even when she didn't feel it, she came back to Missoula and let herself be helped without disappearing into it. She asked hard questions. She pushed back even when she was vulnerable. She didn't let herself be talked into feeling fine before she actually was. That took more courage than most people give her credit for. I think the truest version of love, or of any real human connection, is just the willingness to keep seeing someone clearly, even when it's uncomfortable, even when what you see includes the hard parts. Callie showed me something she was terrified to show, and I looked. That was the whole thing. That was all of it. And she's still here. So am I.